Good morning. In the interest of time, we're going to get started. So welcome to the Switching Gears panel at VICA's 25th Annual Business Forecast Conference. My name is Jeff Sweet, and I'm the Director of Government Operations for the Boeing Company for our operations here in the state of California. And we're proud to sponsor this panel along with Southern California Gas Company. I would also like to thank our track sponsor for today, Bonds. Some logistical things we need to go through at your seat. There's an exit survey for the panel. VICA encourages you to fill out this survey at the end of today's session and return it to either VICA staff or a VICA ambassador at the back of the room, or just turn it into the registration booth in the foyer. It's really important to get these back, as VICA needs your feedback to continually make improvements and make next year's business forecast even better than this year's. So at this time, it is my pleasure to introduce to you the moderator for our session here this morning, John Bunzel. He's a financial advisor for Morgan Stanley. And with that, John, take it over.
Thank you, Jeff, and thank you, VICA, for asking me to moderate the panel this morning. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Pleasure to be here. I work in Beverly Hills as part of the entertainment group at Morgan Stanley, but I have lived in the Valley for over 20 years. I went to high school in the Valley at Harvard School, now Harvard Westlake School, and I also serve as chairman of the board in a nonprofit here in the Valley, New Horizons, an organization that serves individuals with special needs about to celebrate its 60th anniversary year. So I have both a personal and professional interest in life in the Valley. So let's get right to business, all right? The theme of this panel this morning is switching gears. We have a great panel lined up to discuss manufacturing in California. We have a panel of experts who are going to talk about this subject, and the biographies of each of the panelists are already in the journal. So I'm going to make very brief introductions so that we have more time for your questions. First, let me introduce Susan Castillo. She's Vice President for the West Region of Project Lead the Way. Welcome, Susan.
Thank you.
Joe Klocko, Director for the Center for Applied and Competitive Technologies at College of the Canyons. Welcome, Joe. Ilse Metchek, President of the California Fashion Association. Ilse, good morning.
Good morning.
And Robert Sanger, Training Services Manager for the California Manufacturing and Technology Association. Now, I'm going to give each of the panelists a couple minutes to make an opening statement to get things started. And then I have a few questions for the panelists, and then we'll open it up for some questions from the audience. But really, I think the best way to have the most interesting session is really have this be as interactive as possible. So when people have questions, if it's possible at times to have a dialogue and interaction and interchange, that would be preferable. So feel free to raise your hand and chime in at any time. So first, for an opening statement, let me start with Susan.
Okay. Thank you. Well, first of all, it is so great to be at the table with all of you, because it seems that forever, right, the conversations about the needs of manufacturing and the products that the education sector are focused on and working on have been going like this. And at Project Lead the Way, we're about trying to bring it together like this. We are a mission-driven organization. We are the leading providers of science, technology, engineering, and math education in the country. And we work very closely with industry in developing state-of-the-art curriculum. Our curriculum is project-based. Our students are doing, innovating, creating. They are visiting industry sites. They're seeing how math and science apply in the real-world setting of work. We have industry leaders who work with us in providing internships, as I said, school visits. They mentor our students, and they really try to help us in our effort to make that very strong connection with our students between what they're learning in school in math and science and problem solving and project-based learning and the real world of work, and why they need to know math and science and good communication skills, and know how to work in teams, and know how to present themselves, and know how to be critical thinkers, and know how to be able to share ideas with others and know how to fail at coming up with ideas and continuing to work and solve problems and get to the right solution. Those are the things that our students do, and when you visit our classrooms, our students say, why can't all of our classes be like this? This makes so much sense to me. I get it. When they go into a manufacturing facility or any industry setting and they can really see how math is applied in your work, they really get it. Or how engineering, comes together in the work setting. They really get it. Yesterday, we had a very exciting announcement. You've probably heard of the organization called Change the Equation. It's a nonprofit, a nonpartisan group led by CEOs from around the country. And they've been working to mobilize the businesses all over the country to improve K-12 STEM education, science, technology, engineering, and math education. And yesterday, Change the Equation announced that we are one of only 4 STEM programs in the country that is scalable and is netting results. We started in 1997 in upstate New York with about 12 schools with our engineering program, and we're now in over 5,000 schools, 400 here in California.
Terrific. Thank you, Susan. And Jill, your opening statement, could you speak into the mic there? Thanks.
Good morning, everybody. One of the things that I bring with me to the college setting, College of the Canyons, in the program I run is I was 35 years in the aerospace and defense industry. 21 years with Bendix, Allied Signal, now Honeywell, 7 years with Textron and some other companies. And what I saw was there was no one out there willing to take workers who didn't have experience. And so how do you have a well-trained workforce when everyone wants 3 to 5 years experience to start? So I see that's a generic issue. The other one is more basic. It's an economic thing. It's supply and demand. We all know the classical economic theory. If supply goes down and demand stays equal, price should go up. Well, the Bureau of Labor Statistics will tell you that in the recession, we all hear about the 600,000 missing manufacturing people. Based on a study from a year and a half ago. Wages have actually gone down while supply of labor has gone down. So it's basically contradictory to what's there to drive people towards a career in manufacturing. And here's an example. The CNC machinists I train and get placed into positions, they've gone out there at an average wage rate of $12.60. My daughter works at Denny's. She doesn't operate a $250,000 CNC machine. She operates a $2.50 plastic tray. Her hourly wage, including tips, is over $14.50. So there's something basically wrong about how do we compensate people at a living wage yet still remain globally competitive. So those are the 2 issues I see. Everyone wants 100% ready-to-go workforce that could be 100% productive the day they get there. Doesn't help us with entry-level people. And we are not keeping up with livable wages and wages that will attract people to manufacturing versus video game industry versus advertising versus investment banking versus whatever.
All right. Thank you, Joe. Ilse?
Good morning. Thank you for inviting us onto this panel, us meaning the apparel industry. The perception of the apparel industry is a low-wage group of people working at a machine perspiring. We've done away with that since 1995. The laws of California are very strict about that. Everyone in this business must be registered. You have in front of you a salary and market report. This business is much more than design. It's much more than selling, and it's much more than making cheap T-shirts. We have 200,000 people working in this region, ancillary to the apparel industry, within it and affected by it. It's the largest industry in the country. It's bigger than New York, and it continues to grow. And it continues to grow in wages, contrary to some of the others, because we value expertise. You might come into this business in minimum wage, but you're gone in 6 months unless you can pull it, because we don't have people who are just minimum wage with food on trays. You have to carry your weight and you move up. The answer to all of California's problems is teaching the young people entrepreneurship. We are not going to bring the corporations into the state of California. We're not going to bring big business into the state of California. Many of our problems are systemic with Sacramento. We must get out the word of how to make money, how to be in business, how to work, and that is one of the singular problems that we have in creating manufacturing jobs.
Hi, Rob Sanger. I'm from Sacramento, so I might be part of the problem. Hopefully you'll let me leave.
The lead-in was good.
Yeah. I'm with California Manufacturers Technology Association, and I work on the workforce development issues as far as training and development of some of our member companies. The association in general works very in the advocacy role to help manufacturers and businesses in California to stay competitive and stay, keep business friendly legislation. It's a tough job. Jeff can do a better job of explaining the problems and the challenges and the opportunities of being a large manufacturer in California. And I work with a lot of them on training and development projects. And, it's easy to get down on the what's going on in Sacramento. And if you are in Sacramento and you're in some legislative hearings, you'd be surprised if you knew what the unemployment rate is, right? And you're in some of these hearings and you're hearing what's going on. It's like they don't really realize the problem that's going on. I visit manufacturers all over the state, from the Inland Valley of Central California. One day I'll be at Gallo Winery and some of the surrounding locations, and the next day I'll be in Palo Alto. And it's just amazing the diversity in California and some of the challenges that we have. But I really think to close in on some of the problems, it has to come from a local level. If you're a manufacturer, small or large, you need to start working with some of the people like Susan, Project Lead the Way. Today here is the charter school, Granada Hills High School. They've got some great programs, and I think that's where the change is going to happen at the local level. It's not going to come from Sacramento. Eventually, if things happen from the ground up, then things will happen in Sacramento. But as far as education, getting the skills we need for our youth to get into good paying jobs in advanced manufacturing or other positions, I think we all need to take an active role with the high schools, with the community colleges, making sure that there's a match between the way they're teaching and the skills they're teaching matches up with the jobs that are out there. The National Association of Manufacturers has done a good job of ranking skill certifications, kind of like the computer industry did with all their certifications. Well, their certifications out there now for manufacturers as well. California's been a little bit behind on the way they train their workforce, but a lot of that has to do with the segments of the industry. But that's something that's changing, and they're starting to train their workers as far as these certifications go. And there's a good survey. I'm not going to go through statistics, but there's a Deloitte survey which I can email out to anybody. It was produced with NAM in 2011 and the Milken Institute, Deloitte and the Manufacturing Institute, about the skills gap in manufacturing. And there is a skills gap there. But I do think a lot of them do pay good wages. There are some that aren't paying the wages that maybe they should be, but manufacturing jobs is still, in general, pay a lot more than Denny's or other retail occupations out there. And there's some hope with new advanced manufacturing. Magnetronics, I think it was. I saw a demonstration on how Microfabrica has, taken what silicon wafers, etching and deposition, and making the equipment that would make a silicon wafer. Now they can make advanced small micromillimeter tools to work in the healthcare industry. So there's some exciting things to do, exciting new advanced manufacturing jobs out there. It's just a tough climate in California. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Robert. Joe, can I have the mic? So, Joe, I had a question for you just based on listening to some of these opening statements, and that would be, do you think that this training issue is something that really is critical in school, or even more than in the workplace itself?
Well, at least here in Santa Clarita, so I'm 20 miles north of here, there's not one shop class in the high school system. Okay, there's nobody cutting wood, there's nobody cutting metal, it just doesn't exist. The program seems to be geared to getting people into four-year colleges, yet only less than 40% of the U.S. graduating class this year is going to end up with a four-year degree. Even though I work at a community college, I deliver training, not for-credit education. So I have the 7-week CNC program. You come in, you don't have to know anything about manufacturing. In 7 weeks, 40 hours a week, you come out and you get a job. We give you the skill sets to be an entry-level CNC machinist. So that's not necessarily mainstream thinking, but it gets people what they need. And my average age is 40, 42, based on observation. Not that we asked for that data. But we deal with people who've been out of work for a year, year and a half, 2 years, and they are so excited to get a new skill set and get out to get a job in 7 weeks. So it isn't really the focus of the educational system to get the 60% of the American public who is not going to have a four-year degree. I think it's a challenge for us as manufacturers. When I left Textron in Santa Clarita Valley in 2006, the average age of my CNC machinist was 58 years old. Well, they haven't getting any younger, and nobody's making new ones but me. So if you want to make sure that's going to be done in India, Mexico, or pick a country that's offshore, make sure you don't have any people in America to do it.
Okay. Terrific. All right, question for Ilse. Ilse, if new technologies and outsourcing prove to be cheaper and more efficient, how can we ensure stable and consistent job opportunities in the manufacturing industry?
Well, as long as there will never be a machine that can sew a sleeve into an armhole, making it round, you will always need people to make garment. You will always need people to drape a sleeve and to drape a neckline. That will not be technology. What is technology? What has affected our workforce, and 20% of it is technology, is the interface, the ERP, the product lifestyle management, PLM. All of this is technology, knowing where your product is, understanding that an industry like consumer products, whether it's toys, apparel, food processing, is contractor-based. The misnomer that it is a manufacturer who has an entire factory of workers has gone out with NAFTA and CAFTA. And the idea that you are going to be captive to what your production can do is not working in the world of fashion product or any kind of consumer product. So you use a series of contractors. A manufacturer is the brand holder, the designer, the distributor, the seller, the holder of the money, and in general is the name of the company. But the contractor base could be in El Monte, in Vernon, or Guangzhou, China. That model doesn't change whether the contractor is in the United States or in China. China, now the big gorilla in the room, as a matter of fact, is now just as expensive as Mexico. So the whole issue of onshoring is back on the table. And we go back to Sacramento. What are the issues? Number one is immigration. Who's sewing? Who's cutting? And we have lost at least 20,000 workers since the I-9 ruling came in, who are not on the unemployment lines. We are forcing them into the underground economy. This is not a political statement. I don't care what they do in Sacramento or in Washington. But somehow the expertise is with the people who have eye-hand coordination. And I agree wholeheartedly with Joe. There are people who will not be going to college, and yet the college curriculums are all addressing the next 4 years after they leave. And we have in some cities like Paramount, I hope nobody's here from Paramount, 71% leaving school. Only 23% of the students even get a high school education in the city of Paramount. The city of Los Angeles, it's 36% dropout rate. What are we going to do with these kids? If they don't know, as Susan has clearly stated, and that is an Oregon system, that we can't, I have not been able to affect change on that system for our education process in Sacramento. I've been on this committee for 7 years. to change the curriculum so that students know why they are learning the computer. Why do they have this iPad that they're not going to get? Or what use is it other than texting for them? And they don't know, and they are not being taught that in order to pre-pack T-shirts, 2 smalls, 3 mediums, 1 large, how many smalls do you pack for 10 dozen? They can't do that math, okay? They can't even do it with a calculator. And our distributor systems and these people who have not had an education, they can do it in a minute like that. So that's the kind of education we need. That's the kind of effect we need. Beyond the immigration system, we do not have industrial training of any kind at any level except at some community colleges, but that begs the question, you have to get to community college. So there's a big gap there for a huge percentage of our population. And then we do not have a manufacturing tax credit anymore in the state. That went out with Gray Davis, and Schwarzenegger was supposed to reinstall it. It didn't happen. And it's certainly not going to happen with this administration, where if you bought the new equipment, and there is new high-speed machinery that can make things better than they make it in China, a manufacturer or the owner of the brand cannot finance it for his or her contractors and take a credit that year. The 7-year write-down, by that time the machinery is worthless. So you have all of these systemic issues that are in front of just bring it back. It's not that easy. And then the bankers, we can't get financing on equipment, right? There's no collateral financing anymore. So, issues.
Thank you, Ilse. Susan, did you have a comment on that?
Well, yeah, I just really wanted to follow up on what Ilse was just saying about these systemic issues. And I think that is what's really essential, is that we think about this as a pipeline issue, and that we start early as we see it. Our mission, our goal is preparing students for the global economy. And we believe the earlier you start with that, and helping kids get the very skills that you're talking about that you see lacking in the workforce, we know that when we can get to them very early on, they are excited about the possibilities for them when we equip them with the skills and give them exposure to what is out there in the real world for them. And that's what we do through our curriculum and through our very important partnerships that we have with industry. But we look at it as a pipeline issue. We have been very focused on middle schools and high schools, and now we're going to be developing curriculum. We are developing curriculum for elementary. And we're piloting it around the country at about 40 schools, and it will be out next year. But what we know is that even in 2nd and 3rd grade, kids already make up their minds about what they're good at or not. I'm not good at math. And they sort of check out. We also know many elementary teachers aren't comfortable teaching kids, going deep into math, or showing kids how to apply math in the real world. And that's what our curriculum is going to be about. We're going to help our elementary teachers have curriculum that has modules where they can use to help their children have that applied learning of those skills that we all want to see them engage in. But I really do agree that it's a systems issue, and we need to think about that whole pipeline from early on through K-12, community colleges, and industry playing a role all along the way on partnering with us in how we do that. And that's what we're working to do. And we have many partnerships that I can give you examples about that are happening right here in California and all around the country.
Great, thank you. Perhaps later we can go back to that subject and talk about some solutions in my work to actually achieve that. So one thing Ilse brought up was the word onshoring. All right, there's certainly been a lot written lately. I know we were circulating an article from the New York Times, right, about how outsourcing has become less financially beneficial, right, for a lot of companies with sort of what's going on globally in the economy. And there's been more businesses moving their manufacturing back to the United States. Is that something that others see also happening here in California? Robert?
I'll take that. I mean,
Yeah.
we've seen some of that, but overall, when you think about jobs coming back to the United States, then you think, okay, if you're a manufacturer, where is the best place to move. And if it's not because you want to be close to, a university or, have to be in the LA or San Francisco region for certain reasons, not many people are coming to the Central Valley. They're going to go to, if they want to be in the West, they'll be maybe in Arizona or Nevada. So I think a lot of this is not going to come back to California, unfortunately. There'll be certain cases, certain companies will be here for certain reasons. I know a lot of the green tech I've seen come back because there's special programs for them, but most manufacturers are not coming back to California, unfortunately.
So Robert, and then Ilse, I know you wanted to comment. What sort of effect, now that enterprise zones, Robert, have been dissolved
Right.
and the governor is getting ready to implement a statewide economic development initiative, what sort of impact is that going to have on this issue?
I think the sales tax exemption for companies that are buying equipment on the local sales tax will be definitely an advantage for manufacturers.
Okay, and Ilse, you had a comment?
We've brought about change because the consumer is demanding it. Change happens from the ground up. And the customers, particularly in the Midwest and the Southeast, are saying, where's your Made in America product? And those buyers then come to our manufacturers and said, we don't expect you to make it all here, but we need some labeling that says Made in USA. Our customers are asking for it. And we have major manufacturers that have put on new product development managers because there's a different distribution system, there's a different way of manufacturing if you're making something that is going to be delivered in 4 weeks versus 4 months. So whole new systems for Made in USA. Single biggest problem is getting people at the machines. And what we are doing with our current lack of understanding of who is at the machines. These companies don't care about being near a college campus. They would rather be near Pomona. They would rather be where there's a body of workers who want to work. Now, the question is, how do you get the machinery in there? How do you get them trained? It's very basic. Our factories that are registered with the state, meaning the legitimate factories who pass muster for Macy's, Neiman Sachs, all of the major stores need registered contractors because they do not want their names in the papers. And then there are the others. And the others are the majority. We have sent a lot of manufacturing into the underground economy, and that should stop.
Okay, thank you. Susan, question for you, all right? What are the existing skill gaps in the workforce pipeline, and how do we fill these gaps?
Well, I think, as we think about STEM education or the frustration of seeing schools or that impression that schools are all about today, preparing students to all go on to four-year institutions, we really need to stop and think that really today what you all want, what we all want for our children is, yes, they have to have knowledge, basic knowledge, but they also have to be able to apply that knowledge. They need to be able to do and to have skills when they leave our schools. And so I think that is one thing. What we hear from businesses that we partner with is, we need students who know how to problem solve, who know how to work with others in a team, who have good communication skills, who can apply math in a real world setting, who can be an innovative thinker, a problem solver, who's not afraid to put a new idea on the table and be able to communicate with people about that idea. And someone who takes pride in just learning every day, that they're, when they show up for work or whatever they're doing in their life, that they are lifelong learners who love learning and gaining new skills. And so as we work with industry on developing our curriculum, that is exactly what we incorporate into our curriculum. Our curriculum is about helping students gain all of those skills that we know that you see lacking and your frustration today. And that is changing. I have to say, I want to make sure that you all know that Karen Latuner is in the room with us, and she works for Project Lead the Way right here in the Los Angeles area, and works with people across the state. And there are so many great partnerships with industry here in California. And we, there are kids that are getting an opportunity to go into Northrop Grumman, or we were talking about Lockheed Martin earlier today, and how they are getting opportunities to really see why what they're learning in school is important, and how it applies to their life. Toyota, I'll name a very large company. I know we're here focusing on how we help small business, but I think this has applications for what you're doing. They went searching all over the world for a STEM education program that would develop the skills in our young people that they need in their workplace. And they found us, and they came to us and started talking with us about us partnering with them. Well, now we have been partnering with them, and now they are hiring our students when they come out of high school to go into their training programs. And they're finding that our kids are better prepared, are more successful when they get into their programs, to be able to be successful in the work that Toyota is doing. And we have other businesses that are seeing the results of our programs and the kinds of skills that our students are producing. So I think that is what we're always working on. And so we're always updating. We're in a continuous improvement model, where we're making sure that it is state-of-the-art and it's constantly being improved, and we work with our teachers. The other important thing we do is professional development. We don't let anyone teach our courses that hasn't gone through our professional development, and it is about transforming how teachers teach so they can help instill these skills in our students.
Sure, Joe.
Question.
Oh, question in the back.
Out of curiosity, how are you addressing the STEM STEAM conversion?
The which, is this for me?
No.
It's for me. So STEM,
I'm asking how she is
Thank you.
addressing the interest to convert STEM to STEAM.
yeah, so the STEM is science, technology, engineering, and math, and STEAM adds an A there for the arts. There's a real concern that, the creativity from the arts be a part of the overall efforts to instill these 21st century skills in our students. I would say that we have art teachers that use our curriculum because our students learn about engineering design, and they get very sophisticated. They get access to very sophisticated computer programming and software that helps them be able to design. And so our kids are exposed to very sophisticated software that does help them understand how to be creative and how to design, and the whole project management of the engineering process. Our students learn about that, which is an incredible skill for them to develop.
But most schools are already converting to STEAM. Most schools aren't still in STEM. Most schools have already started their STEAM conversion because of the funding opportunities that are now available through STEAM, and also because of the industry needs for STEAM education.
I don't know about if most schools are doing that. I know many are, and I guess what I would say is that STEM does not preclude the arts, and that bringing it all together, it really is about all of it is about creative thinking and innovation and problem solving, and all of those efforts come together in developing those kinds of skills in our students. So partnering with art teachers on if we have a class of our engineering class, certainly if they partnered with their science and art teacher, and it all comes together, which is what we really want to see schools do today, bringing all of the disciplines together and helping students be able to see how design plays a role in all different ways is really, really important. So they can come together and work together.
We found that the
Yeah, that's great.
Well, we feel that without the art at the K through 12 level, we lose our competitive advantage as a design center. This is what, the only thing we have in California in terms of propelling us forward is the creativity based on our diversity. If we lose the art, we,
And that's why,
yeah.
that's why the scheme is important.
Okay, I saw Vanessa had a question, then David.
Perfect. Thank you all for being here. It's very informative. My question specifically is for Robert and Ilse around Sacramento. And when you meet with legislators, there's a real kind of perception problem that the manufacturing industry as a whole is no longer green, that it's outdated practices, machinery is polluting our kind of environment, our resources. And I think a lot of that trickles down. There's a real kind of misconception that manufacturers can kind of retool. I hear that all the time. Well, can't your client just retool? And they don't understand the scope of the machinery and amortizing it over time and how the industry works. So conceptually, I mean, what are the associations doing to kind of change the conversation?
Right, that's a great question. Advanced manufacturing, I think, Governor Brown has really taken an interest in it and passed some legislation recently with the changing of the enterprise zones to help manufacturers with tax credit. GoBiz is also involved with it, which is the Governor's Office of Business Economic Development. But I'd actually like Jeff to take this and answer this question because he's a manufacturer and he does this
Thank you.
on a day-to-day basis more.
Well,
Yeah, no,
I mean, so first of all, as a major manufacturer, manufacturers are incentivized by themselves to manufacture products in a most economical way. I mean, we're always cutting the cost out of our products by, at the same time, enhancing capability. The only way to do that is by looking at, green initiatives. How can you save water? How can you save, the electricity usage? So we're incentivized, just by the fact that, if you're gonna compete, you need to do that. So, I think there's, perhaps a misunderstanding of, what's green and what's not green. You can look at traditional manufacturers, whether it's aerospace, whether it's fashion, and they're green. If you go into a Boeing plant, it is a green plant. And so, just because it's not a, quote, green manufacturer, we're not making solar cells, perhaps, but yet the technology, the machines that we're using are all very modern, all, very economical, green type of machines. So, that's perhaps part of the misconception of what's going on. You don't have to be manufacturing green technology to be considered a green manufacturer.
Okay. Great. Ilse, a comment, then Susan?
Well, yeah, I'll just give you a visual of a plant that I visited in Sri Lanka, which is not a plant, it's 20 machines in a lovely, unair-conditioned, people barefoot on, lovely, very clean, and the machines still pedal back and forth, and there's a fan. It's very green. Same amount of people in a factory here in Los Angeles. The air conditioning's whirring. The high-speed machinery is whirring. Now, which one is greener? And which one is more efficient? And which one is more costly? So the whole issue, we have a whole book on sustainability, environmentalism, and what is green, and no two people can agree on exactly what it all means. What is sustainability? Why do you want cotton? Polyester lasts longer. So nobody can agree on exactly what the rules are, but Sacramento has made up its mind.
Susan, then Joe.
I just wanted to point out that in the curriculum that we provide, we take on the issue of manufacturing and really try to help our students understand what does it mean to go into manufacturing, what is manufacturing today, and what do they need to know and learn about that. We are celebrating as an organization National Manufacturing Day today, put out a news release. We have a link to the website that talks about the manufacturing industry. So in one particular course, Pathway to Engineering, it offers a computer integrated manufacturing course, and students learn about designing products, manufacturing processes, CNC machining, factory system modeling, automation, and robotics. And through the course, they have an opportunity to earn a virtual manufacturing badge that's recognized by the National Manufacturing Badge System. So we are working hard to help spread the word about what's happening today, and also about what sustainability and business and how those two come together today. Very much so.
Joe, jump in.
I think industry in general is doing exactly what Jeff said. Sorry, Jeff. One of the clients I work with, they make wing structures. You know, they converted a long time ago from oil-based coolant for their machines to water-based. They put in a several $100,000 system to take their, what used to be put into the landfills as scrap metal, take it through a system, recycle all the coolant, filter it, put it back into use. Their sales of scrap aluminum last year were $7 million. That $7 million, they are now more efficient because they don't have to charge their customers that, because it reduces their cost base. So manufacturers are clearly looking, how do they be green as part of their overall strategy to be competitive. And if you're not globally competitive today, you're about to become a dinosaur.
All the fabric scraps are now embedded in your automobiles, you know, between the lining of the car and the top of the car. That's fabric scraps, and there are people making millions picking up scraps from all the cutting services and all the cutters in downtown Los Angeles. So yes, it's a profit motive, not because they feel good about it.
So Joe, let me go back to you. All right. So how can businesses partner with schools and with higher education in order to help shape curriculum for the current workforce needs? How can that happen?
Yeah, my grant comes from the State of California Chancellor's Office, and one of the things they want me to have is an advisory board. I have an enormously difficult time getting 12 people to come to a meeting twice a year. Everybody is very busy. So if you want to help guide us in the future, then you need to have a voice in what we're doing every day. I'm the regional director for advanced manufacturing for Northern LA County, Ventura County, Santa Barbara County, and San Luis Obispo. And I can't get 10 people out of that whole geography to come to a twice-a-year meeting. So that's, I think, is important. There's other ways to partner. My program is not on campus. It is actually inside of an aerospace company in Santa Clarita. They have donated that space to the program since 1998. We recognize them for their millionth dollar of donation last year. And as a former president and COO of an aerospace company, if I'm taking a supplier tour and I see a college delivering manufacturing and engineering training in my supplier's facility, I'm sorry, but that's a wow factor. So partner with us. You don't have to give people facilities, but you can support them. You can give them old equipment that you're going to get rid of. There's lots of ways to help us prepare the workforce of the future so that, A, you've got that workforce, and B, they can be trained to use the latest technologies. Because the only way, by the way, my opening comment, I'm not for pay people more, because I know we have to be globally competitive. But we can pay people more if we work smarter and not harder. You know, I think this whole technology thing is so key. I could go on technology quite a bit, but just let me give you an example. Some of my clients say, I don't need 3D printing. Probably all have heard about 3D printing. It used to be called rapid prototyping. Now it's generically called additive manufacturing. I don't need 3D printing. So I did a factory tour and I saw a process. And this particular client had to paint 20 fasteners, screws, in an area, but not paint the area around it. They were spending 3 hours for the last 30 years putting masking tape on, painting it, and then waiting for the paint to dry and taking the masking tape off. Not counting the paint dry time, it was taking them 3 hours to put the tape on and take it off. I gave them a 3D printing mask. The new process is grab the 3D mask, put it in, I'm done. 3 hours to that, times $100 an hour fully loaded labor rate, times thousands of units a month. Wow, did the technology just save that company something? So how do you get companies to adopt technology instead of not invented here syndrome? There are areas where organizations like mine can help you with how do I use technology to work smarter, not harder, work more competitive, not higher cost.
Great, thank you. All right, there are some other questions. David Edelman.
I'm the chairman of ICA, and as you know, we advocate on all levels of government, both, locally, on a statewide basis, and federally. If I could ask each one of you, what would be the one thing you'd like to see change at the governmental level? What would it be, and where would that be at, so that perhaps we could assist?
Only one?
Just one. What's your hot button? How
The,
can it-
the 8-hour day, the California 8-hour rule. It makes us terribly uncompetitive in manufacturing, development, in any kind of creative industry that has deadlines. It's the number one factor in that stops people from having their facility here. You want the next 9, I can give you.
Well, your panel could defer to you for the next.
No, they have their own.
I'll go
ahead,
on that's
Chip.
not new. I mean, workers' comp reform. I worked at an aerospace company in North Hollywood in the 80s, and at our bargaining unit meeting, we'd have 3 lawyers in the back. I will get you workers' comp if you're stressed out. Well, based on the job I had, I should have been a multimillionaire. Okay, so, that whole thing of workers' comp, I'm all for safety and helping people who were truly injured on the job. But in my experience, we've seen a very small population of any given workforce who repeatedly have issues. Workers' comp is costing manufacturers a lot of money in the state of California, and it all goes into the price of the fastener or the piece of avionics or the jet engine part that they got to sell to Boeing.
Susan? You're up.
One of the issues that we find challenging in doing our work in California is teacher certification and just what some of the regulations are about teacher certification. We like rigorous certification. We think that, teachers really need to have the skills and the knowledge. But there are some barriers. I won't go into the the technical part of it, but definitely we could use some help with just expanding and having more flexibility there for teachers who want to teach the courses that we offer, so that we could tap into more talent that's out there in our schools.
Yeah, I just think the regulations that are out there in general really reduce the flexibility of the individual and the employer. A lot of these regulations we go into, but there's a lot of California leading regulations out there that we're trying to make a point on the environment, on taxation, on other things that are hurting our local manufacturers.
Okay, terrific. I'll get to you in just a moment. What about the whole subject of automation? Okay, reducing the number of workers needed. There's certainly been a lot written about factories where they're used to require 1,200 workers to run a factory, and now it's half that. So how do we deal with that issue? Don't we have sort of a permanently changed landscape in terms of employment, Robert?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. There's an interesting study on 60 Minutes, an interview, and I can't remember who the exact people were being interviewed, but it was about automation. And, is there going to be, usually with automation, there's more jobs that come, and then it changes and there's more jobs added. Are we going to get to a point where there just aren't enough jobs to fill? I don't know. I'm beginning to feel like with the unemployment rate we've seen, that may be an ongoing issue, and I don't know how that problem's solved. But obviously on the business side, you can't think about that, right? A business has to be globally competitive, and you're globally competitive, you can do anything you do, get your costs down. And it's not just happening in manufacturing. Look at what Amazon's doing in California, right? They're adding a lot of jobs, but a lot of that is automated, and those packages are moving out quicker. So those are add jobs there. But what about if you're ordering from Amazon, maybe you're not going down to the Walmart or going down to your local mom and pop store. Mm-hmm. These are all things that are happening in the global economy, and automation is part and parcel of the global economy. So I think government, is probably going to get involved in some way with those people that get left out. But for manufacturers that are out there and high-tech companies, they're just going to find a way to do it better and faster with technology. And sometimes technology dumbs the job down, right? You need less skill to do the job because you got a computer who's giving you all the guidance, and you're just there as a facilitator or a problem solver from time to time, but you don't have to memorize all as much as before, and it makes the job easier so they can pay less. So technology is good and bad, right? But for employers, they're just trying to compete, and they're going to do anything they can do to keep the costs low.
Ilse, you have a comment on this subject?
Yeah, I think I read about the same topic when we switched from the horses to the cars.
Before your time, right, Elsa?
This whole issue of evolution and change and doing it better always puts some people at risk and creates a whole nother economy, creates a whole nother world. In my business, in the worst year, which was 2009, we had an 8% increase in the amount of new entrepreneurs, new companies that started up. Why? Because they were laid off from the other ones. But they did not go to bed. I mean, they were creative people with experience. They started new companies. And of that, sure, the recidivism rate in my business is better than restaurants, but it's pretty bad. But everyone tries something new. And this whole issue of automation, replacing jobs and people out of work, there will be new ones. And a lot of them have to do with creativity. And if we don't get the kids creative in the first place and understanding that that doesn't mean they're going to live with mother until they're 30 years old, we're going to have a problem.
Joe, you have some thoughts on this area?
Yeah, well, I guess the bottom line, as I see it, is back to technology isn't always the answer either. By the way, I really like, even though Santa Cruz benefits from the enterprise zone greatly, I really like the fact that there's no sales tax on manufacturing equipment going forward, because that is like a 9% discount for all California manufacturers. But technology can't be the whole answer. One of my clients out in Ventura made solar panels. When you walked into the facility, the raw material is positioned on the side, and a human hand did not touch that panel until it came off for continuity testing at the end. They had to close and move to Oregon because Oregon electricity is 5 cents a kilowatt hour, and California electricity is 20 cents a kilowatt hour.
Right.
So technology isn't always the answer, because it's what's the cost of doing business where you're at. And for them, with a totally automated factory, the cost of electricity was very important. So, you know, I'm really pro-technology, do things better, have a skilled workforce to figure out how to make that machine tool make a part in 30% less touch time, but it's not always the answer.
And Susan?
Well, I agree that it really is about, I think, trying to get in front of this with preparing people to be skilled and creative thinkers and be adaptable and can handle change, having the skills to be able to adapt to change, because change is going to continue to happen, and it's going to happen at a more rapid pace. There are going to be jobs created that we can't even imagine today that are going to add, you know, that will have just many, many more opportunities for people. And so that shift from, there's just a continuing shift as we have more and more technological advancements, and it changes our world and how we live and how we work and where we work. I think that, so that's why it is so critical that we really work on these soft skills, these skills for the global economy that we know we need to develop in our people.
So I guess what I'm hearing then is that one of the keys to dealing with automation, reducing a workforce, is innovation. All right, terrific. Question?
Yeah, I just have a question, please, about whether any focus is being given to older workers coming into the manufacturing industry rather than younger. I'm hearing the focus on high school kids, et cetera. But as we learned in the breakfast session, there are many more people coming to California, and what was it, the median price of people's 401ks or whatever is $80-something thousand, which isn't going to get you anywhere. So I'm wondering if there's any sort of forethought being given to an older population that needs to go back to work, or how, in fact, all small business owners will be able to support their aging parents who don't have work to go back to. Because it seems that that's it's both ends of the spectrum.
Well, there are two issues there. I mean, there are really two issues. In my business, there's a lot of retraining going on the people who have talent, pattern makers who have the trade knowledge, but don't have the technical knowledge. So they don't know the technology. I mean, I know a little bit about technology, and my children think I'm from another planet, that just not even enough. I don't Twitter. That scares them to death. So the
I think it's
issue is
tweet.
retraining. You do?
It's tweets, he said.
I said it's tweet.
Tweet, you see that? Okay. Instagram, though, I do. The retraining and using of the old skills is very important now because, as Susan will tell you, the youth doesn't have the basics. So the older skills are very, very worthwhile. There's a big difference between California and New York on that. In New York, if you're over 50, you're venerated. In California, if you're over 50, you're over the hill. So very different in the perception of the arts in that score. But in terms of there's a name for it, the people who have both parents and their children to deal with. I thought it was very interesting that Microsoft just put in a program 2 years ago where their employees can cover their parents as well as their children and can buy long-term care under their health plan for the parents, which is very novel, very novel. But it's a thought process that has to happen.